So the great thing about a child who can dress themselves is they feel more confident that they can do yet another thing that the adult can do. Also, when they go to daycare or school, they can take care of that independently and aren't as dependent on the adults in their environment, and so they don't have to wait for them. And thirdly, it's less work for you, especially once they are learning to use the toilet. They can take care of all that mess when they have an accident on their own. So in this video, I'm going to be giving you some strategies for how to teach your child to put on their underwear, their shirt, and their pants. I have a different video on how to teach them to put on their coat and one for how to put their shoes on the correct feet. So the things you need to teach your child to put their clothes on by themselves: the right clothing, a step stool, and the patient adult. Now, in the beginning, you're just going to be collaborating with the child. Even before your child is even capable of balancing and putting their clothing on by themselves, you can already be modeling for them what that will look like to put their own clothing on. But to do that, you need the right clothing. And especially with pants, not all pants are created equally for the toddler. In fact, some are just a terrible design. Be selective when you're taking hand-me-downs, and especially if you're going to pay money for items, be sure you're choosing the right sort. So with pants, you want pants that are ideally very untailored. So if they put them on backwards or frontwards, they're going to be equally comfortable. So like this sort of pants right here, it's just the same in the front or the back, so it doesn't matter which way they go on. Also, you'll want pants with a wide leg so the child can easily get those toes through the pants. So that's a good example. Another good example, these are a little tailored, but wouldn't matter too much other than the looks of the pockets if they were on. Nice wide leg. This one even has a zipper. Now, if you do have lined pants like this, these are very nice pair, but make sure the lining is sewn in a way that it doesn't become a whole separate entity. It doesn't become a second thing for them to have to navigate their feet around. It just goes through the lining and the pants easily without their toe getting caught on them. So when you're shopping, you're probably not going to have your child trying things on when they're young. So just like, can you put your hand through really easily and quickly, or is your hand getting caught up? If it is, then it'll be a struggle for your child as well. Leggings are very popular, especially marketed towards the females, but when they're very stretchy like that and they're first learning to get dressed, it can be difficult. They'll get their foot caught and they'll just keep pushing up where it was. Whereas you can get a stiffer fabric that is still soft, a little thought into getting the pants on, which is probably the item, especially once they're learning to use the toilet, that they're going to be changing the most. And actually, I find that the good pants are usually cheaper. I'm sure you noticed that these all just have plain waistbands, no buttons or snaps or overalls when they're first learning to dress themselves. So with shirts, you want a nice wide neck. Doesn't necessarily have to be scooped, it can be a V-neck, but just the wider the better, because their heads are big in proportion to their body, even at the toddler size. And if you've ever had a child, crying because you're dragging a shirt down their nose, you know what I'm talking about. But just a nice wide opening. And again, a more structured fabric is nice because it's not stretching again as they're trying to put their little fingers through. It just can go right through with that. Okay, here at school, we just have very simple, basic underwear, and they have the tag to remind them which side is the back and which is the front. But if you have a child that really bothers, you could do a little dot, and I recommend actually you put the dot in the front because they can see that, so that'll be more of a visual for them as they're getting dressed up, a little dot in the front. And once they move up to underwear, and you can certainly start with regular underwear right from the start. That gives them lots of feedback when they're wet. But it's nice to have something like this. Again, the pattern is on the front versus a pattern where it's the same all over. So to prepare your child for learning to dress, him or herself, it's nice to make sure they know all their body parts, the name of their body parts. That way, when you're coaching them through the process, they know the toes, ankle, heel, foot. Make sure they can really not be able to say those words, but know, where's your neck? They know their neck. Where's your head? Where's your fingers? All that. So they're prepared for the coaching that you're going to be giving them as they're learning to put their clothing on. And next, and this may be one you haven't thought of doing yet, is teaching them the parts of clothing. Okay, so they know pants, but make sure they know, pant leg, that they know waistband. This is a big one because we're going to be saying, hold your waistband, hold the waistband. They really know what the waistband is, and then cuff. Right, because if you say something like end, well, it's got two ends, so the cuff of the pants, and that will be very helpful. Okay, so now that the child knows the names of their body parts, can recognize them, and knows the names of everything on the clothing, you can begin having them get dressed. So because their equilibrium is not as great as the adults, they're not going to be getting dressed with much success the same way we do, which in the beginning, we're going to have the child on our lap. And the reason for that is that they're going to see the clothing in the same way that they'll see the clothing when they are getting dressed themselves eventually. Okay, so when they're sitting either actually on your lap or in between your legs like this, and you're holding the waistband, for them, they're going to see your hands the same way their hands are going to be when they pull the clothing on. So as soon as they can sit up on their own and are crawling, really, you can start this long before they're actually putting their own clothing on. You can be modeling this movement for them over and over, grabbing the waistband, helping them put their legs on, versus, if they're flat on their back and you're shoving the clothing on, they're seeing your hands in a way that their hands are not ever going to be while they're dressing themselves. So they're going to be collaborating by sitting here or in your lap and pushing their feet in. And then once they've got their foot through, if they're still crawling, you shimmy them a bit and get the pants on the rest of the way. But once they're standing very confidently, then you can say, oh, now grab your waistband and pull it up. And oftentimes in the beginning, they'll be pulling the front and you'll be pulling the back. But eventually, they'll be able to do that themselves. So once they're really good at getting their legs in by themselves, they're popping up, standing up, pulling up their waistband, then you can introduce the stool, and get a stool with splayed legs like this. So the legs go out like that so they won't tip over. That's especially important for their sense of security, that it not rock on them. So then eventually your lap will be replaced by the stool, and then they will sit there. They'll already be very familiar with holding the waistband and pulling it up. And this is where the coaching will start, when they're first beginning to do this on their own. You can say pointing your toe, they know where their toe is, and a lot of times they'll get stuck right here, and sometimes that's because the pants are too long, and so you might adjust their wardrobe. Better too short than too long, and you can just coach them, oh, you're almost to the end, keep pointing your toes and keep pulling the waistband and keep pulling the pant leg, and then they have all that vocabulary that you can just guide them verbally to do that. And they're so proud when they can do it by themselves. So with underwear, it's the same process to start guiding them and modeling from that correct angle. So in shirts, again, you start collaborating. In the beginning, you may gather up the shirt on your own so it's ready for the hole, and then again, standing or sitting behind them, show them how to put it over. If you're always doing it directly across from them, they don't get to see how you're doing the hand movements. Now, and once the head is on, then you can help guide the arms. with some shirts, you can show them how to do the arms first, and then go over the head and push their arms through. It really has a lot to do with the clothing, whether that's going to work. So experiment with your child's wardrobe and figure out what works best for them. Another nice thing to have is a mirror. So once they're to the stage where they're doing this more on their own, they can look in the mirror and get feedback, and that'll make it more obvious to them when things are on backwards. And sometimes just being able to see themselves, it's not necessarily that the image is helpful. It's literally a mirror of them doing something for themselves, and it's kind of inspiring because children sometimes get their waistband stuck around, their little bum, and they'll be like, I can't get it, come get it. And I'll say, oh, look in the mirror. It gives them a little more feedback looking in the mirror on how close they are to getting it over their waist, and so that can be motivating. Young children love their image, so just seeing themselves helps them pull up. In fact, true life story with Miss Julie the other day, a child was in the bathroom with a very large mirror but wasn't looking in it and was struggling to get the pants over the bottom, and I said, look in the mirror. Well, the child left the big huge mirror in the bathroom and came to our little gold mirror where the child could only see their face, and went with the waistband and watched their grunting, went, and they couldn't see the waistband at all, but just like seeing themselves was inspiration, motivation, feedback, I don't know, to get the pants up all the way. So I don't know, that's adorable. All right, thanks for watching. I hope that's helpful. Like I said, I've got a video on shoes and coats too you might want to check out, and if you have any tips, I would love to hear them. Maybe you liked this video since you watched till the end. If you did, please click like, it helps other people find this video too, and here's some more videos for you to watch. All right, have a good one.